Yep. Yeah. Welcome! You can call me Murray, and I'm coming to you live from the Tavern of the Damned. Before we begin, I'd like to thank Dungeons and Dragons for hosting us on the official D&D Twitch. I know they're not doing that right now because Extra Life, but they will later. And shout outs to my co-producer Erica for managing the C&D Games account, and those of you who have come over from the D&D Twitch, welcome. And also, I would like to thank Adam for buying me my skull. First things first, I would like to introduce my guest for today's show. She is the author of the Brimstone Angels saga Forgotten Realms novels and the creator of the Tiefling sisters in those novels, Farida and Havilar. She is also part of a group of fantasy authors starting their own D&D gaming live stream. I think the name that won the votes was Total Party Quill. And she's here to talk about all things Farida. Please welcome Erin Evans.
Hey guys!
Where's that button? Hold on. Here we go.
There we go.
Welcome.
Hi.
I'm not going to keep doing that because that's really strenuous on my voice. But
That does sound hard.
well, you know what? It didn't even actually sound the way that I thought it would coming through the mask, the skull. So here we are. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, no worries. It's
Happy Halloween.
always a pleasure. So since we last chatted, the last time we saw you was at PAX West. You were playing with the
Yeah.
High Rollers folks.
Yeah, that was a ton of fun. I got to play Havilar and travel to the plains with a bunch of people and fight a mind flayer. Got almost eaten by a mind flayer.
That would have been really awkward, actually. Can you imagine?
Except the part about the mind
flayer. Tell us a little bit about how this group of fantasy authors coming together to play a D&D thing happened.
Oh, yeah. So first thing I should mention, we did run the poll on Twitter, and Total Party Quill did win on Twitter, but we also ran another poll on a Forgotten Realms fan group called Forgotten Realms Archives, which is a really great group of people who are really dedicated to Realms fandom. And since we are playing in the Forgotten Realms, we thought that was a good place to also start. And they overwhelmingly picked dungeon scrawlers, and when we combined the two, the second place dungeon scrawlers bumped up. So we are the dungeon scrawlers.
Okay.
Which is also great because there's another great feed called Total Party Chill.
Oh yeah.
We actually missed in our survey of cool streams, unfortunately. However, people pointed out to us, "Are you worried about this mix-up?" So we got to be acquainted with them, and we don't have to worry about if they're too close together.
So I just
crawlers. So actually, I was invited by Eric Scott DeBee, who is our DM, and Stephen Merlino. They were the ones who originally came up with the idea. Eric was working on an adventure set in Westgate, which is where his novels take place in the Forgotten Realm, for later publication on the DM's Guild. And he thought, well, would it be cool if we got a bunch of fantasy authors together to play, and to also kind of playtest this cool adventure? So he invited me, and then we have two urban fantasy authors, Rhiannon Held, who writes the Silver series, which is kind of cool anthropological werewolves. It's a good friend of mine. And then Randy Henderson, who did the Fin Fancy Necromancy series, which is very, very funny. We have Yang Yang Wang, who is a writer and actor that's involved with Clarion West, which is a big science fiction workshop out here. And then Emily Tang, who does some magic work. And did I forget somebody? No, and Stephen and Eric. Yeah, okay. There's just enough of us that sometimes I forget one person and I have to go back.
Best not to.
Right.
How forgiving are people when they're the ones that get left out, right?
As long as it's somebody different every time, right? Just spread it out. Spread out the forgetfulness.
Yeah. Or just single out one person.
But yeah, so this is my first time playing a 5th edition warlock, which I am playing a character who insists she is not a warlock, which is kind of entertaining because she's from Rashomon, which is an area in the realms that is ruled by these witches that wear masks. So she's got a mask, and she insists she's a witch, but secret, guys, she's not a witch.
So why warlock?
Partly because I knew them really well in 4th edition. Obviously, I wrote Farida. Farida's series is primarily set in 4th edition, and she was inspired by actually a tiefling warlock character that I played in the sort of the early days of 4th edition for kind of getting familiar with it. And so I knew it pretty well. And then as we transitioned to 5th, and as the Brimstone Angels saga sort of moved into 5th, there's sort of tweaks that happen, but there are some really critical things about the warlock class that just don't fit in the novels, because there are places where like that change would take a lot of novel space to kind of explore and describe in a reasonable way, as opposed to, no, again, it's just always worked that way, guys. And so I was curious. I kind of like the tension in the warlock, that you've got a patron who wants things, who maybe doesn't want the same things as you. You know, if you made a pact because, you always wanted magic and those stuck up Hathrins wouldn't give it to you because you're like not all human or something. And then this cool archfey is like, sure, I'll give you powers. You just got to do some stuff for me. And you just don't ask a lot of questions. And then, and she wants things. I think it's entertaining, and it kind of creates a natural conflict for the character. Plus, Eldritch Blast.
It's true. Eldritch Blast is kind of overpowered, especially in 5e. Super good.
Don't touch it.
Yeah, it's kind of good. All right, there's a little bit of irony here. I am way too hot in this because I am like draped over in this thing. So bear with me for a second.
Okay.
I'm gonna spoil the illusion, everybody. Sorry, but I am cooking.
Dispel magic. Oh, I'm backwards.
Oh. Gross.
Better?
Suitably gross.
Well, you're still on fire, so it makes sense.
Yeah, it's just like this green screen thing is a little heavier duty than I had intended. So it's just cooking. But I can do this. This still works, right? A disembodied head.
Yeah. spooky.
Yeah, it was reaching the point where I was getting distracted. I'm like, I could feel sweat running down my face from this thing. So that's gross. Oh man! All right. So I take it the between the High Rollers game and this, you got addicted to live play D&D with folks.
I mean, it's fun. I mostly don't I try not to think about it too much, the people watching. Just, although I have to, because I'm really loud. So
Had you played on stage before the High Rollers game?
I had not played on stage before. That was the first time I played on stage, which I was so nervous. But fortunately, that theater, like, you know, they turn the lights off, they get the spotlights going. You can't see anybody there.
Yeah.
I have played in recorded games, like for Extra Life, streamed games for Extra Life, and no, I think just them. So I have done that before, which is a lot of fun. But again, like you kind of don't notice the audience, because unless you've got, if you've got Twitch open and you're reading the comments.
Oh God, I couldn't imagine.
The times I have done that, they've been very nice. Like, I'll get a couple of people going, "Who is that?" But then someone will jump in and explain it, which feels pretty good.
Yeah. It looked like a fun game. I don't know. It was very entertaining.
Yeah, I had fun.
And it was nice also to see Havilar in a situation that she's not optimized for.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird taking a novel character and figuring out how to make them into a D&D character sometimes, because there's a lot of sort of narrative flourish to Havilar. She is a very talented glaive fighter, and that is the point, is that she isn't necessarily going to attack things in the most traditional way, but she's sort of using the whole glaive and really thinking about her opponent, and that she's kind of a savant at this. She's not. You wouldn't necessarily give Havilar a very high int score.
Yeah.
She's not stupid, but she's not necessarily the most focused on her studies. But she's very good at this glaive. But in trying to make that into a character, a lot of what that is when you're playing is how good did you roll?
Yeah.
So it's like, I can't compensate for that. And it's also, I've played a fighter before. I actually, when we were playing our game that we're going to be streaming on Gen Con's Twitch channel, hopefully coming in January. I forgot to mention that part. We, when we were practicing, we kind of finished an arc, and my character Cecilia was pulled away through the Feywild to go do a thing. And so then in sort of the catch-up play when we're recording, I played character Remzi, who is actually Havilar's son in the future, who also, I got to also have a pet hellhound. Well, she's a mix. She's a hellhound mix. So similarly, like this kind of big, slightly uncontrolled beast, which I find enjoyable. So I kind of knew the mechanic, but in trying to think about like what would Havilar do, I was a little behind the curve. I felt like someone pointed out later that Havilar would like be readying her attacks constantly. I'm like, that is a really good point. I should have definitely been like, oh, these people I'm standing next to, ready an attack. Like that's the character thing I didn't think about.
I mean, it didn't come off like you weren't thinking about it too much. It was more like you were in a dynamic situation that didn't involve a huge amount of fighting. And so you had you were in a position to think about it quite a bit, which I thought was good. And Mark's a really entertaining DM to watch too.
Wonderful.
His accent work is fantastic.
Amazing.
So he did a really good job.
He was a really good DM, yeah. And the rest of them they're all really good at what they do. It's a little intimidating.
Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, I don't jump into groups with people who play D&D for a living, so it's not something that I've had to think about. But it's everybody knows how to play their characters, and so like as long as people are trying to be true to their characters, it's super fun to watch. So yeah, it was good. I only regret that I had to run off halfway through it to go do an errand, but it was a lot of fun. I caught up on the rest of it later.
Oh, good. That's right. It was recorded. I forgot.
Yes, it was. Yeah. Yeah. No, it was good. It was a fun show.
Yeah.
And I hope you get to play with with them again.
That would be really cool.
Yeah. It's funny, actually. I can't help but think. I'm like, what would Havilar do? What were you? What kind of fighter were you playing? Were you playing a Battlemaster?
Yes, Battlemaster, and I took the Glavemaster feat, so I could hit people with the back end of it because I felt like that was also narratively important.
Yep.
And
Perfect.
That's all I remember about it. I have the forum somewhere.
It was I think the reason I remember it clearly is because the setting was really unique and unusual. Like you're on the back of a giant sailing spider, so
yeah, through the astral sea.
A little different. Yeah. So it was funny, we were discussing beforehand. It's like there's a bunch of stuff we can't talk about, which is the nature of working in businesses with NDAs and so on and so forth. So I guess the question is, right now, what is Erin Evans very excited about? What are you excited about what's coming? Aside from Halloween, of course.
I know Halloween is like heavy on my mind because I have 2 smallish kids. The big one's getting bigger. It's hard to say he's little, but they're very excited about Halloween. My older son is going to be Link from Breath of the Wild, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, in the Hylian tunic.
Oh, okay.
With the Hylian hood and little blue earrings, which he, at first was like, I can't have both, Mom. I can't have 2 things in my head slot. We that. So that's been a lot of stuff this week. And my little one is the elephant character from Word Party, and he's pretty jazzed.
That's pretty sweet.
So they're going trick or treating, and then the adults are dressing as the character Tina from Bob's Burgers.
Oh, yep. Good choice.
Well, the episode, Just One of the Boys for Now, where she goes to the audition for the boy band looking for the guy she's decided she's in love with, but every time she bumps into a guy, she like has this whole like music video sequence about how she's the one. So we're all gonna dress as different Tinas. So I'm Napkin Bride Tina. And that'll be entertaining. We have looking forward, the Dungeon Scrawlers will be hopefully starting in January on Gen Con's Twitch. We have to just finalize a date, which I'm very excited for. And what else? I finished a book. I am shopping it around, so hopefully that's something. Hopefully I will have news soon.
Yeah.
And starting more books. I love writing. It's the publishing part is always a little bit like they're slower than me.
Yeah.
But so at some point there'll just be like a floodgate opens.
Is it gonna be? So is that one of those things? Because like I think about the wealth of authors there are out there in the world, and there are ones that write very slow, where their publishers are just waiting to like hit the button and set everything to press. Like they're just like waiting for it. And then there's the ones who like put stuff out fast. I mean, how many? I don't. That was Stephen King puts out like what 2 books a year almost.
For real.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like a crazy amount. I mean, I'm not a writer, but it seems like a lot. And it's just kind of like everywhere in between. I don't know how people can write that much. It just seems crazy to me.
I feel like I don't think of myself as a fast writer compared to a lot of the writers that I am friends with or acquaintances with. Like Bob Salvatore is faster than me. Eric Scott DePee is faster than me. Richard Lee Byers is ridiculously fast. But one thing I've realized is that having mostly published with Wizards of the Coast and sort of with tie-in, that things are like already being sold before you're done with it.
Yeah.
So you're going a lot faster than sort of regular publishing, where like you write it and then you say, would you like to buy this? And they say, I will read this as soon as I have a chance. And there's a lot of that stuff.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So like it's all of my friends in traditional publishing are sort of like, why are you getting so wound up about how long things take? I'm like, because in my brain, no one takes longer than like a month maximum to read a thing and give you notes back, because it has to be that fast, right? There's the turnaround is intense. And so there's a part of it where I think I realize now that in the scheme of things, I write pretty fast because I was trained to that. So I have this expectation that like books don't take longer than than a year to get like the rough draft done and then the revision done. But so that's good, right? You avoid a kind of, I won't name names, but we all know who's slow.
I'll call out George R. R. Martin anytime for that. I thought there was a really good interview with him and Stephen King where he was asking Stephen King how Stephen King writes fast.
Yeah.
It was really funny. Yeah. I recommend looking it up on YouTube, somebody. Just because it was entertaining to see people who, do that. Anyways, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just like,
no, that's okay. I was trying to cut in when I didn't realize you were still telling a story. The other thing I think that people get into is that it's really easy to get up in your own head, especially like once you've put books out and you've got fans and they have expectations that you kind of get in and they have their ideas and they have like, well, I like this, but I don't like this. And you can't make everybody happy.
Yeah.
That's just true of life. And so if you try to go in there and for George R. R. Martin, we've all heard the theory that like someone like figured out what he was doing, and so he's like, I gotta change it now, or figuring out that reading it and people going like, oh, I don't like this or I don't like that, and you don't read reviews, and like keeping your gut and your sense of self and your like belief in your book is kind of important while still being able to take the feedback that's offered by people who know better. So it's a skill. So
I remember just learning to take feedback on your writing was a hard thing for me in school and stuff. Like just because it's one thing to take feedback that is like, yeah, this is wrong, or you made these mistakes or whatever. It's like, okay, fine. But when somebody's like, they have stylistic choices, it's like, no, I made it that way on purpose.
Yeah.
So it's just it was a long, hard road to get to the point where somebody's like, I'm going to edit your thing. You're like, yeah, whatever.
I'll ignore what I need to ignore. I think that's an important thing too. That's unfortunate because I feel like it comes after a lot of what you learn in sort of formal writing. Like if you're taking classes and stuff, and that you're taught to sort of sit there and listen and absorb all of the information. Because especially early on, there is a lot of stuff that it's not really up for discussion whether this is right or wrong. You did this thing, it's not working.
Yeah.
But then as you develop and you get more skills, like you get some feedback and you have to be able to say, no, this is wrong. And figuring out the difference between like this problem exists and this answer is not the right way to fix it, finding people who have that, like this stylistically doesn't work for me as a reader, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to work for the reader you're aiming for.
Yeah.
It starts to be a little more like it's like less science, more art. But it's a really valuable skill to build, I think.
Huh. Yeah, no, it's even just think about it, just in general, being able to take constructive feedback is a skill that everybody masters, or that I don't even know if you can master it, because sometimes things are just too personal for you to, but anyways, I find the whole subject fascinating because I remember what a challenge it was for me at times.
Yeah.
And how much I try to take that into consideration if I end up in a position where I'm editing something that somebody wrote. Because I'm like, well, they want it to sound like this, so I guess my job is to help them sound like that in the most accurate way they can, whatever. So
that is also a tricky skill. I feel like that took me a very long time. Like after I was a published editor, to really figure out the way to find the thing that the author is trying to do, the thing that the writer is aiming for, and then help them do that. Even if you, as a writer, would say, do this, because at some point, it's not your thing, right?
Is that something like? Do you have a memorable time that you can think of where you were trying to fix something like that? I
do actually. I have one.
Yeah.
It's really tiny. So I was an editor for Wizards of the Coast for a little while, and I did work on Forgotten Realms novels. I was like a secondary editor. I kind of batted cleanup. But there was a series that actually I co-edited with Susan J. Morris, who was the primary editor, who was my editor for a long time. Because the schedule kept shifting and they weren't sure who was going to pick it up. It's called Chosen of Nenduin by Mark Sehested. Mark is a brilliant writer.
Mm-hmm.
And in that book, there is the sort of villain is this Lord of Narfell, which is sort of where there are, it's cold and it's north and there's demon summoning things happening. But he decides to summon a demon in the hopes of bringing his dead wife back to life. But the demon inhabits her.
Mm-hmm.
And things start getting way out of hand, right? Like, good idea, did not plan ahead, man. And we were talking about how to make her creepy, and I was really adamant that what the demon ought to do is bite the wife's finger off and eat it, like as a show. I don't care about this body.
Yeah,
but
that's savage.
Mark was really uncomfortable with that. I think he wound up making her break the fingernails and then eat a rat, which was gross. But I was really pushy about it for a while. And I had to kind of go like, listen, like if this doesn't feel right, like to myself, like if this doesn't feel right to him, if it's not giving him joy to write it, then this isn't going to work. Like if you write something and you don't want to write it, everybody can tell, right? Everybody can tell that feels wrong. Mm-hmm. But that one sort of sticks with me. And then honestly, years later, I had a scene where one of my characters, Havilar's boyfriend, Bryn, gets possessed by a ghost, and the ghost is trying to make Havilar do something. And I was like, she's going to break his finger. I didn't make her eat it though, because I was like, I don't know. I have this problem, and I think I've talked about it before. It's not a problem, but like people have sort of things they like to do in their writing, or tics, or like, kind of images or themes that they go back to. And one thing that I have realized that I do a lot is I think in every single one of my books, somebody gets their hands mangled. I didn't realize I was doing that until pretty late. I think I might have even been done with Brimstone Angels, because I was working on 2 books, which both like thematically involved someone chopping off their hand to get sort of magical powers in a way. One of them, you chop the hand off, you skeletonize it, and then you throw your own finger bones to tell the future.
Yeah.
And then the other one, it's an apprentice, and this sort of wizard character chops her hand off, and he's like, when you're it's an ancient Egyptian same thing. So he's like, when you're a magician, you'll be able to put your own hand back on. So good luck. And I was like, oh no, I can't do these. I can't have both these, because then I'm the hand cutting person. And I'm telling this to Susan. I'm like, I don't want to change her these because they really both resonate with the book. And Susan's like, why do you care about this? You do this every single book. I'm like, no, I don't. And then I went through mentally. I'm like, oh my God. I think I'm really scared of something bad happening to my hands.
Oh, I was going to ask, like, does that stem from some sort of childhood incident, or like you have a friend who...
I've never had anything dramatic happen to my hands, but yeah, like my first Realms short story is a spy who, like, the deal is she goes in, she gets caught, she gets executed, and then they resurrect her because they chopped off her little finger, so they have a piece of her. So they bring her back to life, and then she's like, it's that guy. And the problem starts when the spy master dies, and it turns out somebody didn't get rid of the body on one of those rounds. So like my very first published work involves chopping someone's fingers off. So just cascades from there.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad one, because when you think about it, everybody's hurt their hands or fingers or something. You've had something fall on your finger, or you've, like failed to catch a ball and like bent a finger back, or, you've sprained something, or, the list goes on. And so it's really evocative for people because it's easy to think of how that would feel. Because like, you're like, oh yeah, and then this guy falls and like he snaps his finger back this way, and everybody who reads that will be like, ooh, because they know what that's like. It's harder to have a sense of what it's like to be, I don't know, to eat your own finger. That seems like a harder thing to figure out. But it's certainly when I read things or when I watch films, the stuff that makes me flinch the hardest is the stuff that I can easily picture what it would feel like.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense.
Yeah. Huh. Eat their own finger. That's a good one. I'm gonna save
Right?
that for one of my DM sessions.
It's really upsetting, but like if you're a demon and you're just like and like I like the idea of a demon that's like, you know, possessing someone is like, this is my home, I'm gonna take care of it. But you know, if you're transient, if you're just like there for the downfall of the Citadel of High Watch, as is this case,
Yeah.
maybe you don't care so much.
Well, it's it's a lower shelf meat suit, right? Like they don't feel
Right.
like they need to take care of it. They find a really good body. They're like, yeah, I'll hold on to this. I'll take care of this one. Yeah, that's fair. Oh, that's good. I like it. So does that mean that you're somebody who likes scary movies and gory horror films as well? Because I gotta say,
I have a very vivid imagination.
I noticed.
I like. It's funny because I like horror sort of as a concept. I like to read the summaries, like I go to Movie Spoiler and I read the summaries of horror movies.
Yeah.
But I'm really very susceptible to waking up in the middle of the night and believing they're all true.
Yeah.
Like I made it through 3 episodes of Stranger Things, and then it was when my littlest son was a baby and still waking up. And at one point I woke up with him and I was nursing and I'm staring at the wall and I'm like, it's just gonna like any second now. And I just like that sleepy brain where you're like your executive functions shut down and you're just the little monkey in the woods.
Yeah.
This is very dangerous.
That's fair.
I have a friend who's in my writing group, Kate Alice Marshall. She just came out with a book called Rules for Vanishing, which is wonderful. And she would describe it as dark fantasy. Like it's kind of spooky. There are these teenage kids. They follow this urban legend. They go out in the woods, kind of as a lark, because there's supposed to be this ghost road that appears, and then the road appears, and they go down it. And there are rules. And if you kind of mess up walking on the roads, the things get you. And she's like, it's not really horror. I'm like, seriously, Kate. Like I read this book. And I went for a jog a little late, and there's this stretch where the streetlights aren't very bright and there's a lot of shadow. And I'm like, oh no, the rules are I have to hold hands through the shadow and then I'll have a friend. So if you're a weenie, it's very scary. But I highly recommend it. It's really good.
It's interesting sounding. It's funny because I'm just reading chat and it's just people talking about hurting their hands. Like this one guy's like, I almost sliced through my right index finger with a hedge trimmer. I'm like, ah. Actually, on that note, I worked in hospitality for a long time. I took the end of a finger off once.
Ow!
I'm lucky it grew back. Although if you put them side by side, you can see that one's a little smaller than the other one. But yeah, that really hurt actually a lot. Did not mean to take the end off.
That is one detail that I don't think shows up on. I don't think it shows up on Frida and Idol Champions, but I would be hard to tell. But her ring finger on one hand got chopped off by a sadistic villain and grown back with a crappy hellish healing potion. So it's like it's white. It's like bone white.
You know what? I'm gonna check, but it might be the one that is obscured. Right hand or left hand?
That's the thing. I should know that. I don't remember. Oh, her hands are glowing, so you would know.
Yeah, her hands are on fire. So I guess that's.
This is one of those times I love my fans because when the covers come up, and a cover, I truly believe a cover is in the hands of a very talented artist who knows what is the best way to sell this book and the best ways to focus the details and stuff. So Min Yum did the cover for Ashes of the Tyrant, and it's gorgeous. But I do love the fact that I had just a flurry of fans going, her fingers are all the same color though. There's not a white ring finger. And probably they will know whether it's the right hand or the left hand. I super don't.
Is that
the kind of thing they make, search document for?
Well, that was actually one of the things that I find really fascinating about it, and I was going to ask you about is that because when I look at something like there's a Forgotten Realms wiki, and I know it's not canonical in the sense that it's not officially endorsed by Wizards of the Coast or anything, so it's but at the same time it is built by people who love these novels, and they take everything from everything they read, and it's all documented in there. And I wouldn't be surprised if it said exactly which finger it is on that page. But
yeah,
when Well, that's right.
Hers might not go through the book where she loses her finger, but it might. I don't remember.
Yeah, but
It's a lot of books.
but it's also one of those things like, when you take on writing something that is set in a universe that you didn't create, and so you don't get to create the rules for it so much because there's already 100 novels that have dictated the rules and all this stuff. Do you like is that daunting? Like where do you start when you know that there's all this stuff has to interact in a proper way?
I email Ed Greenwood and say help. No, actually, I always likened it to writing like historical fiction.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're writing historical fiction, there is a lot of research involved, right? So, for example, writing Brimstone Angels novels, often they would do sort of a tie-in. So it would be, okay, it's Frida, but there's going to be a demon lord. This one is Frida, but the Sundering is happening. This one's Frida, and we want you to add Jentarum. So for those, I can usually kind of get a sense of like where do I need to be geographically, what kind of characters do I need to know about, and I can find the source books. And there through my working with Wizards, there were lots of great people who would help me. There's Susan J. Morris and Nina Hess and Matt Cernett, James Wyatt. All these people would kind of like help me find these resources. And then I would, if I had specific questions, I would actually email Ed Greenwood because he has an answer for everything, basically.
Yeah.
And if the answer didn't fit, I could go to him and say, like, I need this not to be the case, or I need it to be a little different. Is there room somewhere to tweak this? Because the Realms is a huge place with a huge variety of people and traditions and history, and so you can usually find somewhere to kind of slide in a thing, or tweak stuff. But I find it really kind of exciting because there's these movable pillars. You can't change things about the world. I cannot change that Jared Thymar is this giant pyramid that appeared out of nowhere. So, but I can go in and there's like, okay, there's not a lot of details and data about like how did they build that. So I can go in and I can tell this story of like, well, or where do they say it came from? Mm-hmm. Or there's I used a lot of the sort of untheric deities, and so the Unther kind of peters out, and then there's Gilgame, and he kind of wrecks things, and then spell plague. So what are the other people doing is like the other gods that have been purportedly dead, like where can I fit them in, and what can I do, and how can I take this lovely book of Sumerian mythology and do fun things. So the nice thing is that you have these pieces you can't move that are really critical, and you sort of find the negative space, which I have to imagine is a lot like DMing. Like if you're going to create a story, you might say like, I like this piece for inspiration, but I want to bounce off it this way. And it's just like, because it's canonical, you can't go, there's not really opportunity to go, that's dumb, I'm going to get rid of it, because you gotta work with what you got.
Yeah. Huh. It's interesting. I don't know. I mean, I find it intimidating in the sense that I just think about how many books have been written, and I don't know, maybe it's analysis paralysis or something. You're just kind of like, oh God, the bajillion facts. And I guess you can just kind of, if you have what is essentially a good support group to bounce all your questions and ideas off of, then you can.
It does help a lot. And the thing that's like, this sounds lazy, but the thing to remember is there are a lot of books. Not a lot of people have read all of them and remember all of the details. And often the details differ from sort of person to person, character to character. Yeah. So
yeah,
there's room. And plus, if you do it biggest and best, everybody else has to follow.
That's a good point.
Cool, right?
Yeah. And sometimes you go to a convention and somebody gets up to ask a question, and it's that person who read them all. And it's like, so in this book it's this, and in this other book it's this. Which one is it? And you're like, those are always my favorite questions.
That's a question for somebody else.
Yeah. So it's funny. I feel like we've talked a bit about Havilar, but we don't really talk about Mehen at all. And I don't know.
Can I pause you 1 second?
Yeah.
I left my charger in the other room.
Oh no, is your laptop gonna die?
My laptop is like saying, by the way, you need to plug me in.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go grab that really fast.
No worries. I totally understand. Oh man, that's funny. I'll take this opportunity to make a formation that actually uses Frida. I saw somebody in chat asked if I had the Frida skin. I don't. I did not grab it yet. I'll get around to it. Alrighty, so Kitty Bree. Bump, bump, bump. Damage. And then see you later, Krond. Move you up there. Swap the bad boy out for Tiefling Fearful Dragonborn. And then
Okay, I'm going to have to slide down slightly.
oh, it's all good.
Okay, sorry.
I got a video game here to play while I'm waiting, so it's it's totally
It's
fine.
a very fun game. My
Yeah.
son has started playing it on the Xbox, and he was very thrilled that I brought home a little card with a code on it for Farida.
Oh, excellent.
Because he was like, I didn't understand. He's like about to turn 8,
Yeah.
and he didn't understand what the letters meant, and so he kept thinking he was almost going to unlock her, and I'm like, but
Oh, yeah.
that's a lot more than you think. But then he also like didn't entirely understand that he could just like let it run. So there have been a couple times where he just was like, can I let it play while I'm at school? And then he comes back, he's like, I have so much gold. But he was like, he likes to sit there and like really do the stuff. He's probably missing big chunks of it, but he's
it's all good. I mean,
he's fond of Farida, so
good.
kind of grown up with her hovering in the background.
Yeah. Hey. And so, did you find that like if you had to tell a bedtime story, you tell them about things that you're writing about, or?
So he used to, when he was real little, he would ask me like, "What are your books about?" And my books are not for children. If you're a parent, you do you, okay? But I don't think you should let your kids read my books just yet. Teenagers, probably okay.
Yeah.
But so I would kind of pick a piece of it and explain. So like The Adversary, which is a story wherein Frida makes kind of a bad deal to try to save her friends and ends up beholden to this like really lechy, evil Netherese wizard who's like collecting chosen into a concentration camp for nefarious purposes, becomes Farida and her friend Doll go to camp and meet a lot of people, and then they save them from a bad guy, and we leave out, all these questions of finger chopping.
Yeah.
Brimstone Angels is a story where Farida and her family go to Neverwinter and basically interact with every threat in Neverwinter, but in particular devils. And there's a scene where Farida and Havilar and Bryn are chased by an owlbear and are separated out, and they come into contact. And so that was, Farida got chased by an owlbear, but she escaped. That's the story of Brimstone Angels, as far as my son knows.
Oh, fair enough.
Nothing
Nothing
so they're
else
all
happens.
a little like that, where I'm like,
Yeah.
what's kid? But this is when he's 3. Now he's just like, someday I'm gonna read those. I'm like, okay, that will probably be okay. So.
Huh. Interesting. It's funny because I think of what my parents let me did, and I was like watching rated R movies at like 4 or 5, and just like they just cared nothing about my input, and I turned out okay-ish. I mean, I guess I did just play a flaming skull for the beginning of the stream, so maybe.
My son's a little. He's also a little vivid imagination. It's his friend. He's got this friend at school, Roger. Roger is somehow like interacting with horror movies, not watching them, but he's like aware of them somehow. I don't understand what he's explained it to me, and I didn't catch what the heck he was talking about.
Yeah.
And so Idris will be like, I'm sorry, my son will be like, Roger told me about it. It's a clown that kills people. I'm like, nah, well, we're not going to talk about that. We'll look at the pictures of the actors before and after makeup. He's like, he told me about this movie. It's called The Lord of the Rings. The phone rings and you answer it and then you die. I'm like, this is not what that is. My favorite has been, he's like, there's this, I'm scared, Mama. There's this movie. It's called John Wick. He's a gun zombie. Okay. My love.
That's wonderful.
Stop listening to Roger.
Oh man, we need to add a gun zombie to our game.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm like, that's kind of cool, actually.
That works. That works for me. Gun zombie sounds sweet.
I did love talking him out of his fear of the ring by say like millennial parenting and be like, baby, if my phone rings and I don't know the number, I do not pick it up. This would never happen. Even if it was possible, we're safe because no one answers their phone if they don't know.
That's so funny. When that movie came out, when The Ring came out, what was it, like 15, 16 years ago now, something like that? Mm-hmm. I was living with some family friends because I had just moved and I was looking for a place. And their kids were like adolescents and they watched it. Like, I came home like one night, came to their place at one night. Like, you know, I had a spare room that I was staying in. And like, I walk in the living room and I'm like, what are you guys watching? They're like, we're watching The Ring. I'm like, oh yeah, because they're like 12. I'm like, all right, well, have fun. And then like I waited for about 40 minutes and then I came back up and just like snuck up behind the couch. And I forget what they say in that movie over the phone. 7 days or something like that. Like some creepy thing. And so I said that and they freaked, just shrieking. And I felt real good about that.
That's probably pretty well done. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a sweet spot where they don't understand. Like when he was little, I made the mistake of letting him watch the Avengers because he really liked Loki for some reason. So we started watching the Avengers and I'm like, oh my God, there's a lot of shooting in this.
Yeah.
But he didn't understand what guns were. So he just was like, why is everybody falling down? And I'm like,
They're tired.
They got so scared. They just fell down. That's
yeah. There were no people in those cars that exploded. Yeah.
They're so surprised to see Loki. They just fall.
Yeah.
But then at some point, like, he started clicking. He's like, this is terrifying. Life is short and we are mortal.
Yeah.
Like, okay. Woo-hoo.
There was actually a psychological paper published relatively recently talking about how the brain separates self from its concept of death.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
In order for people to be able to live in the moment. And I'm like, huh. Because, like, I remember being a kid and finding out what death was and being terrified for a while until, like, I learned to, like, kind of cope as long as I was going to sleep with the lights on. And, you know, eventually you're just kind of like, yeah, it happens. But you still don't think of it. It's just, it's funny.
Like, grocery store.
Yeah.
You were asking me about the hen.
I was asking you about, I mentioned we were talking about Havilar, but we never talk about Mehen. And I'd be curious how one gets into the mindset of, you know, a dragonborn adopted father of twins and like how all that stuff came together. I'm curious.
Well, so I mentioned briefly that Frida was sort of loosely based on a character that I played in another game. Mm-hmm. And so actually we were tiefling twins. And we decided we wanted to be raised by Dragonborn. And that was mostly just like, we wanted to try stuffing all the 4th edition stuff together and see what happened.
Yeah.
And I kind of grew to really love the Dragonborn. And so when the opportunity to write Brimstone Angels opened up because they wanted a book that focused on tieflings, I was like, well, I want to kind of cannibalize this story. And the Dragonborn thing was like the piece that I knew I should probably get rid of because it didn't immediately make sense.
Yeah.
But I just really loved it. I love this idea of like, what does it mean to be a Dragonborn that isn't genetic? Because, you know, I love building fantasy cultures, and there were some really tantalizing aspects there. But so much when you kind of look at something like a Dragonborn, you go, oh, well, it's all about what they look like and like what they are biologically. And you don't think so much about the rest of it and how that would port over if you were raised by a Dragonborn. And so, like Mehen, I also wanted him to be the kind of parent that Farida feels, because at its core, Brimstone, this is my fancy theory writer stuff. At its core, Brimstone Angel Saga is the story of how your family becomes your family of origin. How do you move from, you know, you grow up, you're very tightly knit, but at some point you're going to be your own person. Mm-hmm. And you're going to have to move away from that a little bit, and that relationship's going to change. And so I wanted a character who is really terrified of that change in a lot of ways and understands it's going to happen. He has this, his backstory is that like his father was, this tyrant, this very overbearing man who was really abusive. And Mehen basically like flipped him the bird, punched him in the face and left and never went back. And so like there's a certain amount of like correcting his father's sins in this, but the flip side of that is knowing that your kid could do that, right? Your kid can just chop you off. And how do you sort of navigate that? And then the other piece of it being that he is very much like, he's a fighter. He's a very like, just very dragonborn, right? Havilar is definitely the kid that obviously takes after him, right? He's always drilling them. He's really confused why Farida is so bad with the sword. Like, is she trying to be bad at this? Mm-hmm. And so when Farida takes this pact, he's like completely freaked out on the one hand, but on the other hand, like he knows if he goes in there and he's like, we're taking you to a priest and we're getting this undone and I don't care what it costs, that it's not gonna fix the problem that's underlying it. Like she has to make that decision what she's going to do. Mm-hmm. And then as she goes on with it, right, he can make sort of like rules about it, but as it goes on, he sees that like this is a way that she's becoming sort of confident and powerful and capable, that the sword was never going to give her, and that she becomes someone who is more herself. And there's also this piece in there as it goes that you see like Havilar is definitely the one who, you have siblings and you kind of get that identity label, like you're the smart one, you're the pretty one, you're the athletic one, right? Mm-hmm. And so then trying to like build yourself out of that, away from that sort of labeling, that Havilar is sort of the reckless one. And so Farida is like this sort of subsidiary parent in a lot of ways. So when Farida's stuff starts going wrong, it affects Havilar. And so she kind of catches the blame from that. And so Mehen trying to figure out that both of his daughters are adults now is a really kind of interesting and fulfilling story to write. And then on the other piece of that is like, as your kids grow up and you have to kind of like let them grow up and make their own mistakes and be their own people, you have to, now who are you as they're kind of leaving the nest, right? And so Mehen is someone who has been very like head down focused on parenting, to the detriment of his love life. So in the later books, that was a fun way to go too.
Cool. And let's say hypothetically, we were going to add both Havilar and Mehen to the game. How would they play?
Ooh. I feel like that it is one of the things I enjoyed writing fight scenes in the books is that, especially as Farida like gets control of her powers, the three of them work as a team very much. So I know Farida already has powers that affect other tieflings that makes them work sort of together, but I feel like that would be like, if you could put them all three together, that they should be able to like kind of bounce off each other. Mm-hmm. I think Havilar is definitely someone who sort of runs in and does her thing very fast. Mehen is someone who is sort of more cleanup. He has a really cool lightning breath. If he were in the game, I would really want to see lightning breath.
Yeah.
And his big old falchion. Falchion? I actually have never said that word out loud. I just realized.
I mean, I always went with a heavy ch, like falchion, but honestly, I don't know. I'm sure somebody, falchion is what one of the people in chat saying. Falchion?
Oh, I'm so disappointed. This is like when I discovered it's not pronounced Arinias, it's pronounced Irenes. I'm like, oh, that makes sense, but I'm sad. Yeah, the specifics of like how the characters work together, I think is really cool, and it is not how my in the game is so cool, and it's like not how my brain works immediately. So I'm like, here's their personality, but I think that would be awesome.
Okay. Well, we'll have to think about that and maybe consider doing that at some point in the future.
Pretty cool.
I know people in chat will probably be like, "Oh, they're coming next." I'm like, they're not. Sorry.
You tease.
Yeah, yeah. Neither of them are coming in 2019 because the next three characters are all locked in and finalized ish and in various stages of development and so on and so
That'll be
forth.
exciting.
Because it's one of those things where it takes us like 3-ish weeks of just dedicated time across everybody who's involved to make one character, which means that the character coming next week is done. Was done a week ago, and the one coming for the event after that is being made now, and so on and so forth. So
There's that lead time thing again, right? Where you're
yeah,
like,
yeah,
what's next? Ask
Yeah.
me.
yeah,
Down
yeah.
the line.
I could tell you what's coming next week, but not.
If you make Havilar a character, I will have to really think. I will solicit from the audience suggestions for her items, because one of the things that Farida has is chapbooks, and
Yeah.
the notion is that Havilar has stuck these in her bag, because this is something Havilar does in the novels, is she collects chapbooks, and like the really trashy ones that are like, the adventures of the Zakaran Sheik and stuff.
Yeah.
I think no, that's right. One of the ones that Farida has is called like How to Kiss Better.
I thought that was really funny when I saw that.
Havilar's just like, you might need this. I don't know.
It's like a combination. I kind of want to read this, but my sister should read this.
It's very dog-eared. I think Havilar has already like made an excellent study of it, and
Yeah.
she's like, okay, you need this now. And Farida's
Yeah.
like, I don't want to talk about this with you.
Yeah, how to carve up somebody's face with
She
romance.
doesn't need a book about that. She reads it like, wrong, lazy. Oh, that maybe.
Yeah.
Havilar's fun because she's very much a bruiser. She's very big. Like, she wants to do the fighting, but like she's kind of a girly girl, right? She'll put like a little ribbon on her glaive because it looks nice. Like, she's the one who's gonna wear, like, if one of them is gonna wear sexy armor, like it's gonna be Havilar.
Oh,
and
like
the hen will be like, that is bad armor. You're gonna get hurt. This is a stupid plan. Take it off and go put something else on.
It's funny because there's like an almost official mandate these days to not do sexy armor, right? Like,
Yeah.
so the idea that somebody would be like, no, I care if it looks aesthetically correct for my body shape, is actually pretty interesting and funny. So
I think that
something to keep in mind.
through the novels, like she's always wearing like, I think she either has like leather or scale armor. This is the thing I always have to look up because I don't think about it that much.
Yeah.
I think about their emotional states. But she wears proper covered armor. She doesn't want to get hit, right? But
Yeah.
there is a scene in Brimstone Angels where there's like this like fancy lady adventurer or bikini armor, and she's like, oh my god, I would look so hot. And the hen's like, this is how you lose a lung.
Yeah.
So no, we are not purchasing that. Also, what's this price tag? That's ridiculous. You don't need new armor. You have armor.
Yeah. Yours works. Wait until it breaks, then get a new one that works. Yeah. Fair enough. Okay. Well, I don't want to dig too much into the afternoon because I know you have little ones to take trick or treating. So
I have costumes to finish.
costumes to finish and
Pumpkins to.
Oh, do you guys carve pumpkins
No.
on Halloween, or do you do it in advance?
Well, we usually try to do it the day before because I find in the Pacific Northwest, I don't know if it's this bad up there, but like if you put the pumpkins out earlier than like a day or two before, they start rotting. I mean, it's disgusting. It's so wet.
It's very humid in Victoria.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we've kind of creeped it closer, and so we usually do it the night before. I went out to get jack-o'-lanterns, and everybody was sold out. So I bought some pie pumpkins because a friend of mine said, "Oh, buy pie pumpkins and just paint on them, and then they don't rot, and then you can bake them later." It's like,
Yeah.
all right,
That makes sense.
that's what's left. So, but then we were busy last night, and today's gonna be gone. So I may just, since we're going to, my brother-in-law and sister have claimed this. Everybody comes to our house for Halloween usually.
Yeah.
They're like, we really want to do it. We want to turn, and I'm like, this is a good lesson. We have to share. Spirit of the holiday. Everybody should get to buy a big inflatable Frankenstein if they want to. So my house is going to be one of the bowls of candy houses, because we're still going to have candy. I'm not going to be a non-candy house.
Fair enough. I've already had more sugar today than in the last 2 or 3 weeks put together. So, because people brought in donuts and candy and
Oh, wow.
yeah, just tons of stuff.
you're ready for Halloween.
Anyways, thank you so much for taking time out of your afternoon to join us and for being patiently with me with my wardrobe malfunctions.
Your skull was amazing.
It was not bad. Yeah, it was one of my better ideas. Anyways, yeah,
Thanks for having me.
no problem. Looking forward to chatting again. Have an awesome Halloween.
Bye, guys.
All right, cheers. Whoop. And scene. Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm just gonna adjust my mic and levels a little bit because I made some adjustments with Erin and for the Flame Skull mask. So I'm just gonna move this green screen thing that I have wrapped around all my stuff. It's kind of like a cloak of invisibility that you can just barely tell is there. So, there's a couple things I mentioned that I would do this stream, and one of them is checking out this box. So we're going to be doing a bunch of giveaways next week. Next week is our 100th episode of our live stream. We're going to celebrate a little bit. Now, there's a couple of things that are going to happen with that. One of them is we're going to do a giveaway. A giveaway that starts now, which is to say that you can start entering it now, because we are going to give away a D&D Beyond Legendary Bundle to someone. And you will have between now and the stream next week to sign up for it. D&D Beyond Legendary Bundles are a pretty cool thing in that once you have one, all future content you buy on D&D Beyond has a discount. But also, you get everything that exists on it at that time. So the last time we gave one of these away, I think it was worth about $300 US or something, and now they're like closer to 600, 550, I don't know, something like that. Because hey, lots of books come out. So we're gonna do that, and I'm also gonna show you what's in the box, because I have a box and I'm gonna show you what's in it. Yeah. So hold on a second. Ugh. Now, I've actually already opened the box. Something that's interesting about this is, I mean, first of all, for those of us who follow us those of you who follow us on Twitter or Instagram, may already have an idea of what's in here. But this one got sent to us by some really cool folks we know at this company called WizKids, and they make things like minis, lots of minis. I got a brick of the Descent into Avernus minis here. Now, 6 of these we will be giving away during our stream next week, and 2 of them I am going to open now, and then just because honestly, because it's really fun to open these, so I want to open at least 2 of them before we give the rest of the brick away. And then I will show you the last thing that is in there, because there's actually more stuff in the box. So, and for those who are wondering, like, hey, like, I live in X country on Y continent, will you ship this to us? And the answer is yes. People who win prizes on our stream, we will ship them to you. The real question is whether or not your country will have any additional customs or fees that show up when that happens. However, we will do our best to send them to you. And just keep in mind when you sign up for these things that we do need a shipping address, a name, and a phone number in order to send them your way. So if that's information you are not comfortable giving out to strangers, fair enough. Your parents raised you well. However, keep that in mind for when you do get these things. So these 6 I'm going to put aside for next week's show. And these 2 I am going to cut into with this little knife and have a look at what's in there. Because who knows? It could be anything. But I'm pretty sure it'll be minis from this set. I'm crossing my fingers for a Zariel because I really want one for my desk. But I guess we shall see. Oh god, stuff falling out. All right. I got. Oh, this is. I think this is one of the last guys in Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. A Yagnoloth. Look at this guy. It's like a blue flame in his one hand. I know the camera can't focus on it properly because it's set to focus back here, but Yagnoloth. And a Maragon. Little armored dude. What else we got? Oh, I got two more. Da, 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 da. A little flying spined devil. You can kind of see he's got like his legs are back beside his tail. And then one more in this box. Hey, it's a Rakshasa, Mahadi, one of the NPCs in the Descent into Avernus campaign. Mahadi is a Rakshasa. He looks awesome. I really wish I could play as a Rakshasa in a game, but being a magic immune, mega dangerous being seems a little unfair. Does anybody know if there's a warlock pact of the with Rakshasas or like Arcanoloths or something? Because that'd be really cool. These like hyper magical races that are like CR 11, 12 monsters. Oh shit! Not Azariel, but the second box. Try not to spill everything everywhere. This guy looks cool. The Legioned Horned Devil. He's got a great big shield and his glavy spear thing. Little flame on the top of his head. This guy looks awesome. I mean, I guess it's a Fiend Pact warlock, but like it just doesn't seem like our Arcanoloths fiends? I'd have to look that up. I mean, I guess it's technically Pact of the Fiend if they're all fiends, but yeah, Arcanoloths are fiends. What about Rakshasa? Also fiends. So I guess it's Pact of the Fiend. Yeah. Anyways, it's just kind of... Oh dear. I dropped one. I don't know which one that was, except that it was a little bit more dense and rolled away from me quickly. Oh, this is cool. It's like winged fallen angel. I'll try and dig the one up I just dropped in a second. A little closet. God, that's tiny. He's got little like hook weapons. That's so totally not going to show up on camera. God, where did that go? Hold on. All right. Oh. It's an Amnesu. Probably clearer right there, even though it's not very big. That's sweet. Cool. Anyway, so we got 6 more of those coming, and then we also will be giving away this. It's an Infernal War Machine mini. And by mini, I mean it's actually kind of huge. But I guess it's in proportion to other minis. So we will be shipping this out once we give it away on next week's show as well. So, I mean, do you really need another reason to tune in next week? I mean, it's our 100th episode. We're giving away some crazy stuff. Because, yes, we will be announcing the winner of our Gleam giveaway for a D&D Beyond Legendary bundle. And yes, we will be giving away 3/4 of a brick of Descent into Avernus minis and this here Infernal War Machine. But that's not all. I'm not going to tell you what the other ones are yet, but because some of them are still being decided upon. Yeah, tune in. We'll even be shipping some to you in this here Descent into Avernus bag with the logo that the art that's on the cover of the Alt Edition Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus book. Yeah. Oh, it'll probably be wrapped around this Infernal War Machine once we put it into another box. So, so that's cool. I got a huge mess over here to clean up now because there's like plastic mini stuff all over the place. Anywho, need to go shopping here in the Bible Belt. I mean, it really depends on maybe that not being a great idea. So I know we got a number of questions over the course of the stream so far. It was really hard. So wearing the thing and the skull and all that stuff, it was kind of actually really hard to like do my job. So I missed a whole bunch of stuff right away. So I'm going to kind of like go back and start going through questions to try and catch up a little bit. Yeah. Alrighty. So going back. Cobra King, isn't there some kind of restore corpse spell that could turn a demi-lich floating skull back into a fleshy floating head? Yeah, there's a few things that you can do that with. Yeah, costume strix. Where do I get it? Oh, I'm sure somebody in chat already answered this. Jokers Forever, but it's rewarded from one of the Year 2 Festival of the Fools variants, in which you use both Rosie and Strix Bee Stinger. Yeah, you get bee costumes. Would Mehen be a tanker type? Sis sounds like a pesky striker. Well, Giant Dwarf, that's an interesting thing. There's a few ways you can interpret that, right? Like anybody who is a fighter is arguably a tank anyways, because they tend to have heavier armor and have a decent health pool. So, I mean, if we're going strict 5e, I'm thinking that both Mehen and Havilar would be tank or hybrid tank, maybe support type characters. So, maybe. They are not in our production schedule, just so you know. But, it seems like a good idea to add at least one more tiefling. And Farida's sister seems like a good choice. So, we're thinking about it. Thunder, more tieflings for Farida when? 2020, yeah. Ronan, seeing as some players are now capable of reaching quite deep into runs, is Cini thinking of delaying the next possible soft cap increase because of it? And what was Justin's reaction to learning about this? So it's funny, Ronan, when you posted the screenshot of you at like 8:13 or something, like obviously you had like all the DPS buffs pretty much, and you also had, looking at your formation, I'm like, okay, he's stacking up all the possible debuffs and taking the time to swap all the characters around to really maximize DPS. And like that's something that like 0.01% of our players do, maybe. Like or maybe even lower than that. Like it's not something that many of our players do. Very, very few players are legitimately making it as far as where you've been making it. And so I took the screenshot and I was explaining to both Dave and Justin how it was that you got to where you were, and like basically how it is legitimate. And I was just like making a note for them. I'm like, if we do anything to increase our soft cap increase, we need to consider also changing the point at which the auto banner strikes its hammer down on you if you reach. It's like area 1000 or 1100 or something where it does it, because players may legitimately start making it there, and we don't want them to get in trouble, because generally it's the players who are making it to those super high levels in some way where they're hacking the game. They're using some combination of scripts or other things to push really hard, end up with super high click damage or something like that, and they tax our servers, which can lead to issues on our end, but also issues for other players. And so that's why we have an auto ban in place at that level. And I mentioned it to them, and they're like, oh yeah, we should consider that. So I'm not saying we're getting a soft cap increase soon, because there's a lot of content and a lot of stuff, and but there will definitely be another one for sure. And yeah. I didn't catch Justin's reaction to learning that info, because he already knew about it when I brought it up with him, but Dave was surprised. And Dave, honestly, Dave is kind of stoic and hard to impress. So the fact that you impressed Dave is itself impressive. Alrighty, do the starter packs, Foursquare, Complete and Ellie, have shiny cards? Yes, they do. And so the contents of DLC packs, the contents of DLC packs are supposed to have shinies depending on how expensive they are. There's kind of like a scale, and it more or less matches a lot of the in-game purchases, but it's not something that we call out well everywhere. And it's something it's kind of on our to-do list. It's like, we're aware that we're not saying that in all the places that we need to. So, alrighty. Has Erin Moonblade ever been brought up as a possible champion for the game? I think she would be a good fit. I've been reading these novels. Which one is that? I'm thinking I'm getting her confused with another character altogether. Dun, 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 dun. Half-Elf Assassin and Harper. Hey, I haven't read these ones. I don't know this character. Is she alive still? Huh, interesting character. I will pass your suggestion along. One of the interesting things about a lot of characters, so we have a sort of not a mandate to operate by with Wizards of the Coast, but like they would very much we prefer that we lean towards canonical characters from books that are more current. Obviously, R.A. Salvatore is still publishing novels with Trits and the Companions of the Hall, although we did go with their earlier iterations. And Erin, whom you all just saw in chat, she has, relatively recently published the, novels with Farida and Havilar and Mahan and Lorcan and so on. And so we've been kind of like leaning towards characters who are more recent when we go with canonical characters, because, quite frankly, there's, 3-4 decades of novels of characters, and, there's tons. There are tons. So Jokers Forever, I will pass your suggestion along to Chris. I don't know. I just don't know straight up whether or not it's likely that we will ever add that character, Erin. But yeah, she's in 6 books. Cool. One of the things that draws us to characters, canonical and otherwise, is characters that are a little bit outside tropes. Which is to say, a lot of protagonists tend to be humans, elves, dwarves, and like the more basic classes, like fighter, ranger, wizard kind of thing. Like, and not that it's a bad thing per se. They are storytelling tropes for a reason, and they're easier characters for most people to identify with and get find compelling protagonists. But it also kind of makes it harder to have more variety. Like we talk a lot about monstrous races and more representation and stuff like that. And there's a whole bunch of races we haven't added to our game yet. We don't have any Tritons. We don't have any Bugbear champions. We don't have any Goblin champions. We don't, there's just all these characters that we don't have. So, given an opportunity to pick a canonical character that fits in that people want, maybe we'll take that route because there's some good ones. But at the same time, if we get the opportunity to make our own, we're not going to make a human or an elf or whatever. So it's just something to kind of keep in mind. Is like we want to be more diverse. We want a more broad selection of character races and class combos and stuff to use at different times. So just rambling on. It's a hard maybe. Have you talked with Critical Role about adding their characters? Izzy2000, you are the lucky winner of the first person to ask that question this week. If the opportunity presented itself for us to work with Critical Role and incorporate either Vox Machina or the Mighty Nine into the game, we would jump on it if that opportunity presented itself. That said, I don't know if you noticed, Critical Role is busy. Not just
producing their own show and managing their own channel and creating more content for that, like Undeadwood and other stuff. But also, they have to find a way to make the 90,000 or so backers that help them fund a full television series happy. And like, I'm so glad I don't have that job, because that would be a challenge. So anyways, I don't think that they would have the capacity for that, even if it came up, even if it was something that they wanted to do, even, you know, like the opportunity presented itself and they're all on board. They're so busy, you know, and that doesn't even include the stuff that, like, each one of them, they all have day jobs, right? Like, you know, they're voice actors and writers, and like they're involved in other things, and you know, it's yeah, I don't anticipate it happening, but believe you me, if the opportunity presented itself, we would absolutely love to. Light Bodie. It's kind of difficult to place familiars on the roving familiar bar over ultimates. I feel like I should place them with their feet on the bar rather than my mouse arrow on the bar. Is that something that's helpful, or are you planning on redoing the whole familiar placement process anyway? It's a little bit helpful, Light Bodie. It's one of those things where so a huge amount of how anybody interacts with any game or any operating system is like, how intuitive is it? How much does it make sense to you and the average person when you pick it up, right? Like, one of the great joys of the very first iPhone was that when you first picked up your phone, and this isn't an iPhone obviously, but like when you first picked up your phone and you like touch the screen to make it work, you looked at it and everything more or less worked the way that you thought it would. And a lot of that's, you know, that's a hallmark of great interface design. Now we've been updating our familiar functionality of late. We added the ability for you to select individual ultimates. We added the screen for selecting placement, where you could what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry, my throat's getting a little dry. We added the overlay for the display of the zones to let you know where you could place them, what they would do. We're iterating on it, right? And it's something that our developers are still working on now. And so, you know, we need to find a line between functionally what do we need to put in place in order for it to work, and also the average player's expectation or, you know, experience. Like, how does that fit in? How does that change it, right? And like, so we've already made adjustments to familiar placement along those lines. Yeah, it's so that is to say, Light Bodie. I'm going with Light Bodie instead of Light Body. I hope that we can incorporate enough feedback to make it something that works for the vast majority of our players. But yeah, it's kind of an in progress thing. So that feedback is, yes, still useful. Cheese Pop-Tart, what can I do about the Tree Blight boss guy? One-shotting half my party as soon as I entered the area. Higher levels, and if you're at max level, more tank champions to increase the health of your party. That should help. Shields. Having Calliope in your party to cast her ultimate before you get there so that everybody has a buffer of health also helps. Saving your feats, sorry, not your feats, your ultimates for as soon as that area loads, to just unload them on the boss and get rid of them as fast as possible also helps. Giant Dwarf. I love how you show what the Xanathar is doing, but what is Castellanter doing, or the Castellanter's doing? Also, as soon as I saw what that beholder was doing, I went and bought Bruner's athlete feat. Thanks, Giant Dwarf. Yeah. The Castellanters are, you know, a little more Machiavellian than some of the antagonists in the Waterdeep Dragon Heist campaign. Lego Maple. Ignore this if this gets asked a lot, but are there plans for connecting Android accounts and Steam accounts? I've been wanting to switch to Steam for free space and runtime up on my phone, and currently have no way to do so. So we don't officially support any kind of cross-platform play. Yeah, it's probably a little easier for just indirectly addressing the topic. If you are a company that income is in the many millions, if not billions of dollars related to transactions in your games, getting all of the different platform owners to allow you to have a cross-platform setup is a little easier to negotiate. Generally, Microsoft wants you to buy stuff through their storefront, whether that's on Xbox or on Windows. And generally, Valve wants you to be a Steam user so that you're buying stuff through Steam and so on. Getting them to say yes to you having ways of playing across multiple platforms is not an easy deal to negotiate, even for massive AAA developers whose budgets are many, many orders of magnitude higher than ours. For a smaller company like us, the added thing on top of that is also the developer time. As you can tell, we are now on a number of platforms. We're on Steam, and we're on Android and iOS, and we're on Xbox One and PlayStation 4 and Arma Games and Congregate and WebGL, etc. Each platform we add means that we have to dedicate more developer time to making sure that the game runs and updates work and roll out properly across those platforms as well. Which has ultimately for us required hiring people and other things. So it becomes a huge time sink trying to run things across it. So anyways, one of the reasons that we do not have cross-platform play is how much work it is. And another reason is how much other stuff it requires on top of that. So it's not something that we are ever likely to do with Idle Champions. It doesn't mean that we won't do it with a future title, possibly, but it's not something that we're looking to do. That being said, I know that on rare occasions, our benevolent developer team, may be able to help you out if you open an in-game support ticket. But officially, that is not something that we can do, and it's technically not necessarily something we're supposed to do. Liege Hastur. Are there any plans to change the alignment of characters where it doesn't match up with official sources anymore? For example, Jarlaxle or Archon? You bring up an interesting question, Liege Hastur. So there's two parts to this. One, sometimes we do. We updated Jarlaxle's alignment. I think we updated his alignment, didn't we? Or is he chaotic neutral or something? I don't know. Anyways, the blanket answer is that all of our characters are taken from a very specific snapshot of who they were at a point in time. And that's how we approach them. That's why we have Caddy Bree and Regis and Wolfgar and not who they are now. Their reincarnated versions, because spoiler, they all died at one point, and then they came back. So we pick a character at a specific point in time, and so we don't tend to change things like their alignment or other stuff like that. That being said, sometimes we do reworks of characters. We did a pretty massive overhaul of Jarlaxle when we did our core champion balance update earlier this year. And so there's always a chance that something will change. I'm not sure what Archon is set to right now. Is he set to lawful evil? Neutral evil. Yeah, because I don't think he's neutral evil anymore. He's just some other kind of horrible evil in the new book. So yeah, we're not planning to make any changes to them, but that doesn't mean that we won't make any changes to them, because we might. Always pick usurp power, even if it's the worst thing for your formation or you're not using Archon. Anyways, I hope that kind of answers your question. It's not something that we intend to do, but because the way that we use alignments tends to be related to either formation abilities or criteria for playing different variants, and being able to change an alignment is actually kind of a big deal in that context. It would mean you may or may not be able to use a character with Mert variants. You may or may not be able to do other different variants in the game. So it's not something that we try to change up. Does anybody know what Archon's alignment is on his character sheet in the Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus book? I want to say it's page 106. And I, for some reason, don't... Oh, it's on my desk. I don't have a copy of it right here. It's on my desk. Sorry, my non-streaming desk. Anyways. Mage Pie, any plans on updating the tutorials to explain all the new features that have been added to the game? Yes, actually, there are. I don't know. I don't have an ETA on it. the game has evolved a lot since we made our tutorial. Back in like beta, going into early access, launching in like September 2017. So we there is a lot of information that could be updated, could be changed. Some of it may even require some changes to how some stuff in the game functions. So I could say that yes, that's something that is on our list. I cannot give you an ETA. It is not coming in 2019. Yeah. Alrighty. Wyverny win. So Dylan, when do we get a live stream of the Codename people playing D&D with Idle Champions original heroes? You haven't had a live stream of it, but for the podcast crossover earlier this year, it was like Dungeon Drunks and Dungeon Drunks, How We Roll, and Talking Initiative. Is that it? I can't remember. Anyways, there was a 3-part crossover in which 2 of our Codename folks participated. One of them was Kat, who played a character that was from one of our lunchtime D&D one-shots, or short campaigns. And Chris played Stokey. So are we going to play a bunch of characters? I don't know. That's the kind of thing that might happen at Extra Life, but that's the answer I got. Alrighty, Giant Dwarf. I meant that as mechanically in their fights, seeing as how that ath feat now has a purpose. What are bosses doing when they do different things? Giant Dwarf, that's a little bit too esoteric for me. Yeah. Cobra King of Earth. Rather than trying to cut through a lot of red tape to get Critical Role into the game, have you considered making an off-brand version of them that you could put in their place, perhaps made with the players' help separate from the company or group? No, we definitely wouldn't do that. We work. So there's a couple of things to that. One, the D&D community may look like a growing and vast community, and in some ways it is, but it's actually still a relatively tight community. Almost every single one of us goes to D&D Live every year, and there's a few other major events that many of us participate in each year. It's too small of a community to consider doing something like that. But also, we work with them, and we like working with them, and we like them, and we know them. So we wouldn't do that, just straight up. Yeah. Plus, I mean, if you were going to have somebody make a knockoff of, Not the Brave, they aren't Not the Brave. They're just a goblin rogue that has some similarities. But honestly, like, what makes Not the Brave is Sam Riegel playing Not the Brave, and the, Not the Brave's story in, across Exandria, and that Matt Mercer is telling, and all that stuff. Like, the most important part is the character. Like, you love them because of who these characters are, not because one is a goblin rogue and one is an Azamar barbarian and one is a half orc overpowered hexblade warlock / paladin multi-class. I still can't believe Matt Mercer let him do that. You love them because of who their characters are. So even if you made off-brand versions of them, it wouldn't be the same. Which just makes me think of that. I don't know how many of you watched The Simpsons decades ago, but just that part where Mr. Burns wanted to hire Steven Spielberg for something, and he's not available. He's like, then get me his non-unionized Mexican equivalent, and it's like El Spielbergo, which is a funny gag, but yeah. Evil Emperor Zerg. Archon is lawful evil, page 111. Oh, I was off by 5 pages. Yeah, so we're not planning on changing Archon's alignment, but that doesn't mean that it won't happen. Alrighty, is there any rough ETA on when we might see a new patron introduced to the game? There isn't. All I can say is that I can confirm that more patrons will be coming in the future. One of the things that we talked about in developing that system was, how overwhelming it might be if we introduced too many patrons at once. So we want to make sure that we're kind of staggering it out. Follow as a patron, question mark. I mean, follow Thump Gadarm would make a great patron. Lots of characters would make great patrons, because when you think about it, all you need for somebody to fit the criteria to be a patron in our game is to be somebody that you would quest on behalf of or do work for, right? So obviously Mert and Vajra are obvious choices if you've ever done Waterdeep Dragon Heist, but like it goes beyond that. There's everybody from Laeral Silverhand to, I mean, shit, maybe you want a Manchun or Elminster or Durnan, or the list goes on, right? There are a lot of characters that you would be willing to do work for if you thought that they could give you something that you want. So yeah, I can confirm that more patrons are coming, but I definitely can't confirm when. Supply 215, 215. Did you go over the weekend buffs and Golden Epic? I did not. Hold on one moment. I know this has been data mined out because I remember seeing it in the Well of Spoilers on Discord, but this coming weekend is questing weekend with buffs to Brunner, Naeli, Evelyn, the Black Viper, and Wolfgar. With a golden epic equipment card for Wolfgar. Yeah. Yeah. I hope that helps you get further. Nem Moonstone. When is the next event? The next event should start on Wednesday next week. DC Backroads. Statement. Just gotta say, I so love the patrons. Oh, good. I'm glad you like them. Shatterhand. Any plans to do anything further with the factions, like Force Grey, mechanically speaking? Companions of the Hall have some mechanics that tease such a possibility. So we're not planning on doing anything with Force Grey because they have too many members. Yeah. So we're not planning to at this time. We're not planning on revisiting affiliations that already have stuff. However, there are teams that are incomplete. The Heroes of Baldur's Gate, for example, the Heroes of Eros as well. So I mean, we're gonna finish off some teams. Like spoiler, Krydle will be coming to the game at some point, probably next year. Don't know when. As well as Sentry will arrive next week. And Lucius and Nova will also be arriving next year. So, and then there's some other pretty important characters from some other groups that will also arrive. Anxiously awaiting the Goblin Wolf Riders to be made enemies in the game. Hey, good point. Yeah, me too. I'm going to make a note. Hey, Chris, incorporate these into an adventure. Thunder Remix. Can you talk about the wild offer system? That's pretty broad question, Thunder. What can I say about it? I can say that it still isn't out across all platforms, that this is the first iteration of it, and we're still working on it. We're going to look at the data, see what we need to do, make adjustments as we move forward. If you're wondering why it is the way that it is, or why some aspects of it were done in specific ways, how that other stuff, I think a lot of that is above my pay grade and I can't get into it. It's a really good question for the next time Justin or Chris are on stream, because they can speak more to the design mentality about why it is the way that it is, which I can't. So I hope that holds you over a little bit, Thunder, but that's really all I can do right now. Garwar, would it make sense to assume the next patron would be from Avernus, for example, Mad Maggie, since the first were from the most current campaign at the time? That would be an assumption, So you almost made me want to spoil things there, Garwar. Almost. I'm just going to double check one thing. I'm definitely not going to say who's next or where they're from. I can say that the shortlist that I saw last, before it was implemented, before Mert and Vajra were finalized being the first ones, I can say that, what can I say about that, actually? I'm just trying to think. I need to tread carefully. as Dylan dances around it. I could say that the shortlist we had first was before Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus was a thing. That being said, I mean, Mad Maggie would make a good patron. Mahadi the Rakshasa would make a good patron. So who ends up being next? I mean, that's for Chris to decide. So he will decide. I see him in chat. You can't stop me from talking, Chris. I'm in here and you're out there, and I have a knife with a plastic thing on it. No, yeah. Alrighty. Would Manchun really hire the champions as we're a pesky thorn in their side? I think that Manchun would arrange events. I would arrange events to have the champions doing what he wants them to do. I think that evil aligned champions, some of the more roguish champions, he might be like, "Hey, you. Would you do this for me? I'll give you a thing. I'll give you this gem." And they'd be like, "Oh, hell yeah, that's great." That's not a knife. No, it is a knife. It's a tiny little knife that is like, it's a paring knife, basically. I literally only use it for cutting the plastic wrap off of these boxes of minis. Alrighty. Would you guys consider removing the open a patron chest as a challenge option? For completionists, this kind of forces the player into spending almost one half the currency for the week. Yeah, I mean, I will pass the feedback along, Booch. Acquisitions, incorporation, affiliation, if or when. It's a when. I mean, so far there's only one member of the A team in the game. I know there is another member who is since retired, but again, it's the retired version that we introduced to the game, so that's why Binwin isn't affiliated with AI. Alrighty, Izzy 2000 again. Would it be possible to make the difficult Rex more accurate when patrons are turned on? Knowing you won't reach Z325 when you get to Z240 really sucks. So, I mean, that brings up the greater question of how difficulty is calculated in-game. And the criteria in which it currently calculates it is just woefully inaccurate. This is a problem that we have been aware of and has been on our minds for quite some time that we don't have a solution for right now. So, yeah. When we get to it, this is really it. I know that Justin had some ideas about how he wanted to approach it to make it more accurate. He is currently probably still in line to get his badge for BlizzCon because they sent us a lineup photo hours ago and it did not look like a good scene. So it was either BlizzCon or Star Wars Land at Disneyland. I don't know, whatever they were doing. Anyways, lineups. Yeah. So hopefully, yeah. Just report the E damage levels to kill the final boss. Well, but there's more to it than that, right? That doesn't take into account possible environmental effects where you're taking damage from falling lava or falling rocks or whatever. It doesn't take into effect variant stuff. It doesn't take into effect the added difficulty of it being a patron. And so far, our patrons haven't added difficulty modifiers to things so much as reduce the lists of champions you could use. But having them, what if a patron is like, yeah, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make every enemy you ever fight armored. So, yeah. Our Green Paradox. Can we get Aophel Hero just a coffin? Wouldn't he be he's dissolved, right? He doesn't really have a coffin. So, wouldn't it just be I don't know, a little bit of bubbling acid that, because all the broken down elements in there, it's. Could be. Yeah. Anyways, no, we're. I can actually probably safely say that we are almost definitely not adding Aophel to the game in any form. Yeah. Anyways, what else should I mention? Because as we are getting into the last 5 to 10 minutes ish of the show, I see that Erica timed that perfectly because I was just about to plug it. We have a Gleam open for the next week, just under a week. We will be announcing the winner of a D&D Beyond Legendary Bundle. during next week's show, episode 100. I haven't thought of an episode title for it yet, but it'll be appropriate. Where we will be giving away mad things, not just a D&D Beyond Legendary Bundle Code announced then. This here thing, this here infernal war machine. Yup, it's big. 3/4 of a brick of minis, as well as other stuff. Pretty good. I'm pretty sure we'll have at least one prize next week that will be just unlocking all of the DLC for a player. So, stuff like that. Cool things. Huge thanks to WizKids for sending us this stuff. We love it when people send us stuff. Even if we don't get to keep it, at least we get to hold on to it for a little while. It's pretty cool. I have no idea what this MSRP is for. It's not on the box. I'm going to go ahead and guess it's expensive. It feels expensive. It's like heavy. Are there certain a bit lesser known D&D sources that have interesting characters you would consider adding? It's an interesting question, Lego Maple. So there are two aspects to it. One, we want characters that players want, right? So players tend to want characters from the shows that they watch or the books that they've read. So which is to say that we try to focus on those ones, we very much try to focus on characters from popular shows and stuff. So lesser known D&D sources tend to be a little bit harder for us to justify. That doesn't mean that we don't do it. Planescape Torment isn't something that everybody these days is familiar with, but we did use it. We did, incorporate some Torment Planescape stuff. So that's part of it. But yeah, lesser known sources. It really depends. There's a lot of X factors behind the scenes that dictate which champions get added. So, Garwar, hidden code spoiler. I like patterns, Garwar. There's a pattern. Anyways, what else? I'd like to reiterate my thanks to Erin Evans for joining me on stream for the first half of the stream, and also just tolerating me while she watched me try and get my Murray the Flameskull costume to work. Shout outs to the folks who understand that reference, because I like that reference. I know our art director Adam will get that reference. But not everybody will get that reference, Murray the Flameskull. So, yeah, thanks for that. What else? Shattered Hand. Congratulations. What else? What else? No, I think we're good. Yeah, I think less is more. Yeah. So, I guess the thing is, first of all, thanks for joining me. It is Thursday, October 31st, 2019. You guys are all here. I think that's rad. Welcome, and thanks for tuning in, and thanks for sticking around. This show, as it exists because of a number of amazing folks behind the scenes, especially and first and foremost, Erica, who is co-producing and moderating this show along with me, as well as our friends and partners over at D&D, Greg, Bart, Pelham, Allison, Shawling, and Lisa and Raphael. And I know we're not live on the D&D Twitch right now because they have Extra Life programming this weekend. You should support Extra Life. Everybody in the office has ordered shirts to help support the cause this year, and we will be doing our Extra Life in 3 weeks. So not this coming weekend, but 2 weekends after. November 22nd to 23rd, I think it is. Let me pull up a calendar. Starting on a Friday and ending on a Saturday morning. Look at my calendar. It's 22nd to 23rd, right? Yeah, 22nd to 23rd. We'll be running an Extra Life. As part of our Extra Life fundraising, we will have things that we create for all of our games, not just Idle Champions of the Forgotten Realms, but also for Crusaders of the Lost Idols and Bushwhacker 2, that players can purchase and help us support BC Children's Hospital Foundation, which is an important cause. I mean, it's kids. It's kids. Do it for the kids, please. That money does not help us keep the lights on, and so we will stay up way too late playing games and trying to be entertaining to make that work. I think that's about it. Yeah. Unless there's a final question, I am going to run. Sir LeChuckster, did I miss your Strahd update? I didn't give an update on Strahd this week. I will give an update on another date. Anyways, thanks everybody. I hope you enjoy. I'm assuming there's Critical Role tonight because it's Halloween. There's no way they're not going to do a Critical Role. So, yeah. Have an awesome end of October and stay safe, everybody. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Cheers.